David, great to see you. Thanks very much for making the time for us.
Ezra, thank you for having me. I'm sure everyone knows I've come back behind the Iron Curtain for the month of July, and it's a different world stepping back into Canada from the free state of Florida.
That's right. I mean, you have you're normally these days based in Florida, which I think has got to be one of the freest states in the union. Um, and you've come back to Canada. Just give me a minute on that. Uh, Florida, Ron DeSantis, he challenged Donald Trump and didn't fare well, but I think, frankly, his place is to be the best governor in America. Compare that to Canada in general and Quebec and Montreal in particular. Tell me some of your observations coming back from exile.
Well, it's true. There are pros and cons about living anywhere. Florida has its pros, it has its cons. Some of the cons are, health insurance, car insurance, home insurance. Insurance issue is something of a problem in Florida. I mean, everybody can admit it. There's some places where there's some crime as well, and everybody recognizes that. Politically speaking, however, it's a different world than stepping back into Canada, or at least in Quebec in particular. Freedom has a price to some extent, and living in Florida, you see what it's like to live not shackled by a government, not totally oppressed by a government. You might be somewhat oppressed by the federal government. It certainly exerts its power over the states in America, but there is far more of a respect for state rights in Canada than there is a respect for provincial rights by the federal government in Canada. I might have said the US there, but no, it's a different world. Ron DeSantis, did not succeed what he wanted to succeed at in running for president. Some people take it as an insult to say he's a good governor. He should stay governor, fill out his term there, and should have run in 2020. What year we're going to be? 2028. Bottom line, he's a great governor, despite what I'm going to say the fake news in Canada would have you believe. It's, they try to refer to Florida as a bigoted, racist, homophobic state where the freaking government here issues travel warnings to the 2S LGBTQIA plus community not to go to Florida, as if they've never been to Miami, the most multicultural, I would say, LGB friendly community anywhere on earth. So it gets its demonizing. DeSantis has been a great governor by and large. And but no, just coming back here, it's a different world. It's a world where people walk around thinking they need to ask for permission to leave their house, as opposed to having been born with God-given rights to do what they want, save and except for where the government needs to exert its force and influence.
And one of the interesting issues, and I know you're fairly libertarian. I'll let you describe yourself, but I think you love liberty. Is one of the functions that we give to the state? I guess it's the Hobbesian social contract. Is we give the state the right to use violence to keep us safe, so it's not a war of all against all. I'm using old-fashioned phrases here, but I guess what I mean is there are some things where I think you sort of want the state, like to stop shoplifting, to stop crime. Toronto has an extreme crime wave. I know it's also in Montreal and Vancouver. Auto theft, home invasions. Those are the things you actually want the police and the government to stop. Whereas in other states, like, say, California and San Francisco in particular, police don't even react if it's shoplifting under $950. It's a weird rule. So that's something where Florida is free, but where the state ought to lawfully exert its power, it does. I'm not saying it's crime-free, but I think the woke defund police from doing their policing work, that has gone nowhere in Florida. In fact, he's sort of praising police, isn't he? But making sure they're not woke.
For sure. And the funny thing is, the irony is when you don't defund the police and you let the police do their job, not with impunity, but with confidence that they'll be supported by the people and the government, they do their job better. Like there isn't, as far as I can tell, really the same resentment towards the police in Florida, or the fear of the police in Florida, as in other states. And so, look, there's definitely pockets of less safe areas of Florida, but by and large, it is not a live and let live, but it's the police are sort of on the side of the people, as opposed to the guardians and the tyrants over the people for and on behalf of the government, compared to what you see here. The idea, I mean, I'm going to go back to the trauma that we've all experienced through COVID, but the idea that you would have police breaking up parties in people's homes, pepper spraying people for not wearing masks, it's somewhat foreign to the zeitgeist of Florida. And so with freedom comes a certain bit of risk. but with prison comes a guaranteed degree of certainty. And it's just like, it's a different culture. It's a different spirit of the state of Florida compared to other states in America, but certainly the state of Florida as compared to Canada. There are, I would say, Floridian spirits in Canada, but by and large, you come back here and you realize that people want to be told what to do. They want the government to dictate their lives so that if and when mistakes happen, well, they don't get to blame it on themselves. It's the government. If things go to hell, it's the government's fault, and it's never the individual's fault or responsibility, because they've abdicated all responsibility to the government, who will invariably screw things up more than the individual would if they had their own way.
I know that people in Vancouver and Calgary, when they go on a holiday, I know Calgary because I'm from there originally, a lot of them go down to Phoenix, Arizona. And in Montreal, a lot of folks, when they go on winter holiday, if they can, they go down to Florida. In fact, walking around Florida, you can often hear French accents. And I'm not just talking about people from Haiti. There's a lot of Quebecers down there. And it's my observation that a lot of people who had the means and the ability to work from Florida just went down there to escape most of the lockdowns, but also the political class that locked down Montreal so hard, including with curfews. Whether you were jabbed or not, they had curfews. That same ruling class then skedaddled down to Florida for their own personal freedom. So they ruled over Quebec with a brute force, but then they themselves chose the lifestyle of Miami and Florida when they went on. Like it's quite something. And this is one of the things that infuriated Albertans when they saw Jason Kenney's staff flying around on holidays when he was ordering everybody not to. It's that even the locker downers don't actually believe in it, other than for the little people. That's a crazy quirk about Quebec and Florida, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's the hypocrisy of government is that, I mean, I would say by and large, they understand that they don't actually believe in the rules, and the rules are totally unscientific and totally idiotic to begin with. It's a means of control. And I mean, the names of politicians, media types that, went to vacation in Florida or elsewhere, St. Bart's. I forget who the liberal guy was who pre-recorded a video from Canada saying we've got to celebrate Christmas.
Right.
Well, I always forget his name, but I'm probably better off forgetting it. Pre-records a video saying we've got to celebrate Christmas differently this year while he's in St. Bart's. There was a famous Quebec radio guy. They all go to Florida. AOC, Eric Adams, they all go down to the state because they love it, but they love bashing it. And I don't know, it's hypocrisy. It is only a means of gaining control over people and retaining that control. And it's not without its flaws. Health insurance costs, out the wazoo in Florida. Home insurance, because of issues, costs a lot in Florida. But at some point, you have to take the pros with the cons and make a decision as to what is the place in which you want to live. Ezra, I was up in the Laurentian Mountains 5 days ago, and I hit a hiking trail. And the first thing I see is I'm getting beautiful green scenery, a big yellow red sign that says, in French, you must register online. And there's a QR code. And I'm like, this might exist elsewhere. Maybe I'm a little bit cynical and angry at my home country that has turned into an open air prison. But I got to register before I go on a hiking trail. I mean, that's if I even brought my phone. It's wild. But you step back into Canada and you really feel the oppressive, full control that the government is trying to exert over everybody in all aspects of life. It's like taxing you up the wazoo so that you effectively are working for the government. You're reliant on the government for all essential services that are failed. They're not even able to provide traffic-free roads. I had a map, the image of the map of Montreal, and it was a heart attack. It looked like you had the red arteries everywhere around the heart of Montreal. And it's like, oh my goodness, if this were a heart, it would be indicative of a heart attack. Yeah. And we're witnessing like an effective heart attack of construction, crippling infrastructure. I'm at a Tim Hortons listening to the two people in front of me complain about how they were waiting for 6 hours in the ER. And one guy saying, yeah, I got to wait for 2 or 3 or 4 years for elective surgery for something. But if I have the stroke because I don't get the elective surgery, well, then they'll treat me right away if I can get it. So it's just like you see it in the starkest contrast when you come back and you get to compare it to where you've been. And I feel bad having these feelings, but it's like I come back to Canada and it sincerely feels like a failed country. Yeah. And my sorrow is that There are many people who say, Viva, you got out just in time, and we can't do it for X, Y, and Z reasons, which I totally understand. I just have a tremendous amount of sorrow coming back here, and it's like returning to the scene of a crime, where it's like sort of sitting Shiva. You come back and you see people mourning the death of their country that was once free and beautiful, and now it's the symbol of international tyranny.
Well, hopefully it can be fixed. I observe a trend around the world, whether it's El Salvador, Argentina, the Reform Party in the UK, Marine Le Pen in France, Alternative for Deutschland in Germany, Viktor Orban in Hungary. I see in some places the pendulum swinging back. I mean, I just saw a new poll in the United States that suggests Donald Trump will be restored.